The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to lecture number 28. Today we will be talking about white line separation and flares. And once again, I would like to emphasize that this is not something that I would like to see misconstrued as trimming advice. Even so, I talk like it, but you cannot necessarily take this advice without any more insight into the whole workings of the horse. We have some pictures here of hoofs that are really beyond the scope of most trimmers, to say it rather crass. This is not something that is easy, and it does require the insight of the entire professional course. But I would like for you to at least know what can be done, what should be done, and all these different little details. But please do not take this and say, I know now exactly what to do, and I'm going to do this, because there are so many other things that you have to take into consideration. I see quite a few pictures where I say, well, this is still not right. The hoof is still not right, and the white line is still open, and others do not recognize this problem. So these are the things we want to talk about, and I want to take you through the entire scope of it. Let's start with white line separation, which is also known in conventional circles as white line disease or CD toe. Just like with all the other problems, the answer for repair of white line separation is the same. We have to first remove the cause and restore physiological hoof form. The cause for white line separation is not fungus or bacteria. Fungus and bacteria are always present around the hoof, but they cannot manifest in a healthy hoof. Only when hoof mechanical overstressing or dehydration decrease the quality and quantity of the hoof horn can white line separation take place. So this is really important to understand. It's not a disease. It is a malfunctioning of the hoof, of the circulation, of the hoof not building enough horn. And when the horn is not growing enough, or the wall is levered away to the side, then fungi and bacteria can establish themselves and will eat away on the inferior horn. They will penetrate further upward and eventually destroy the laminar horn and corium, which then will die off. Remember that the white line is built, maybe I should go back to this picture, that's a little bit, it's a little bit misconceiving, and I will redraw these pictures. I realized this just now, that this is not good enough. So the white line is built here in this area where the laminar corium connects to the solar corium around the coffin bone. This here, by the way, is the Palmer process of the coffin bone, and this is the lateral cartilage. So where the two connect, this is where the terminal papillae build the white line. And so the white line would be built kind of like this. And here it is already a little bit wider and therefore destroyed with just dirt getting mashed in there. Now, bacteria cannot thrive with oxygen. Oxygen does destroy bacteria. But when you have dirt packed in here, the little bit of bacteria that sit here under the dirt towards the white line, they certainly can work on it, and they do. And then we get to this. And over time, if this is not taken care of, and this doesn't happen, this happens in two cases. This happens in very neglected horses, and this happens in horses that are trimmed wrongly. But if you have a decent trim on your horse, you don't have to be afraid that this is going to happen to your horse. So when you have this dirt packed in here, let's say this is all just loose dirt, but then from here on the bacteria can start eating, and they will eat away. And they will do everything they can to get to the corium. And when they are there, then the horse is really in trouble, and then all of a sudden people notice that now the horse is really, really lame. So when there is not enough healthy horn growing, that's what's happening. If you have a hoof that grows a lot of healthy horn, you have no trouble with the white line. Occasionally, one time back. Gravel can also not penetrate the white line. That is usually how seedy toe is described, that gravel is just traveling up the white line and comes out on the coronet band. This is impossible. This is really, it doesn't travel up the white line. It travels up the white line and then it travels up the laminar connection. But at that time the horse must be already lame. I cannot imagine any other way. So it cannot travel up the white line if there is enough horn growth and good quality hoof horn. Occasionally there will be a bit embedded gravel in the beginning of the white line, especially if the hoof, like the one here in the picture, is overall left too long, or there was insufficient exposure to water. And that often wreaks havoc on the white line. And we will explore this a little bit more. Lack of water may become a reason for white line separation. The laminar horn requires a lot of water, and without being replenished on a daily basis, it will dry out and recede. When you take a piece of horn like shown here and you lay it for the shortest amount of time in the open or in the sun even, it shrivels in the shortest amount of time. And this is, since the white line is made out of connective horn and has even less horn tubules than all the other horn structures, it is highly dependent on water, and if you take the moisture away from that hoof, this white line will shrivel, and that is certainly going to become a problem. This is something I have, so now that we are on lecture number 28, I start to have a hard time explaining this one more time. Bedding dries the white line out. Ammonium and bacteria can then enter the spaces between the shrunken lamellae. The ammonium raises the pH level and compromises the acidic shield usually found on the outside of the body. Why do I have such a problem with this? Because horses do not belong in stalls and on bedding. It's just not right. Horses belong out in the open where they can move around without hindrance. This is a picture from the Strasser files, and it looks pretty severe. I have nothing better to show you, nothing updated. What happens here is if terrain that is too soft to produce hoof mechanism will result in a lack of horn production. Soft pasture for hard-hoofed horses represents a problem here. The coronary bulge is tougher in hard-hoofed animals and does not receive sufficient force on soft ground to expel the blood completely in the coronary venous plexus. Circulation and therefore hoof production are reduced. The white line grows down too slow and will be destroyed more easily. Here we have a donkey living on soft ground with wall removed after the corium had died off. So you get such an enormous amount of white line separation here that it doesn't help to keep that wall on, because you can never expose all this to air, and therefore it will go on and on and on. So there comes a time where you do have to resect this, and that had been done here. And as the wall grows down there again, it is, in most cases we see it regenerate and come together again. In hoofs with high heels, white line separation often occurs in the lateral walls. The high and or contracted heels lead to separation due to forces from the heel area. That is shown here in the schematic on the left side, how those heels push on the wall, so the wall gets pushed out. It has to go somewhere. And then you see separation here, or here you have even, this is white line separation on the left side here. And on the right side you have even a crack in the wall from the high heels. Always remember, I can't emphasize this enough, with trimming we can only influence what is growing in new. So you trim a hoof like this and all of a sudden you see this. This is nothing. That doesn't mean that heel here is still too high. That means the heel was too high, and now you're fighting the effects from this. And it's growing down, and you have to keep on trimming correctly in order to counteract this. Certainly, excessive toe length causes white line separation due to forces on breakover. And I think this is very obvious here. The entire white line here is already stretched from here to here. So every time this horse breaks over with this very long toe, it pulls it a little bit more away from the sole junction and from the coffin bone. And this really would have to be taken all the way back to here. And then, well, actually probably even to here, because this is a very high-heeled hoof. So when you have this lever force here, then it will pull constantly and spread the white line. And again, the white line goes only to here. But then it doesn't, from there on, it pulls on the lamina corium. In a contracted hoof, the lamina corium is often under permanent pressure, leading to inferior white line production and excessive white line separation. And this is one of those hoofs, you know, where everybody looks at the heels and says, oh, you have to set the heel point more back. Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, this is the white line. And all of this is separated. And this presents a constant lever force on the hoof. It's not so bad in the front, but on the sides it's really bad. And to deal with this, you need to be real careful. You need to know what you're doing. And you have to remove all the other causes, like these extremely high bars here. These are the bars as they exist. And they should really only go from here to here. So there is a lot of consideration that you have to bring into a hoof like this, and not just trim the frog down a little bit and leave the bars where they are and then say, well, there's not much we can do. Because when we do what we are doing in our trim paradigm, we absolutely have very good results. Shoeing speeds up white line separation due to reduced circulation, vibrations, unnatural forces, etc. So here we have on the left side, this is a picture of just the shoe removed, nothing done yet. And you see how this is separated here, on this side at least. On the other side you can only see a little bit. But what happens under a shoe you usually can't see, and therefore farriers don't really say it exists till it becomes so blatant that you don't know what to do about it anymore. Here is on the right side is a hoof that is a little bit later in the trim paradigm. It's already trimmed, also freshly deshod, and you can see how fragile this whole area is if you think back to all the things that can happen when you remove the shoes. The fragility of the hoof wall, because this is all inferior hoof horn that hasn't been growing right. The white line problems go all the way to here and all the way to here and then all around. It looks as if he has the least problems right here, but everything else probably had high heels too, so everything else is sitting in the ladder, in the walls, in the quarters. When we have coffin bone rotation and separation, or a dropped coffin bone, white line separation occurs. The laminar connection in the frontal area or all around in a sunken coffin bone are overstretched. And here in this picture you have already a good connection again after the coffin bone was brought to its ground parallel position, but you still have, because it grows from the top, and here it has grown in the new nice connection, and now you have still on the bottom a problem. And at this time, when you have that good connection, this about 2/3 down the hoof, you can just go ahead and start trimming this off. And yes, it will look for another 4 to 6 weeks real ugly, and then it's gone. then you don't see it anymore. During rehabilitation of a contracted hoof, white line separation may happen. During the opening of contraction, the wall pulls away from the coffin bone in the lateral regions, and it takes time for the bone to rebuild to its original shape. Discoloration of the white line is often visible. This is here in this picture, the discoloration of the white line that we're talking about is here, that yellow, because the white line is usually not that yellow. That means there is some wound secretion mixed into it, and you see something, you see another few things here. The most apparent one is the one here, where the decontraction in this hoof has happened so fast that the skin of the bulb actually has popped open. And that, I cannot help but thinking, that must be very painful. And I'm so kind of thinking if my heel would break open, that would probably be very painful. Then this discoloration of the white line did not come without pain, and then you have a lot of bruising here as well, and that hints on pain. And I think that this hoof could have come maybe in another 4 to 6 weeks to the same place without having to go through such forceful and drastic changes, just by going a little bit slower with the decontraction. I have not had this happen. I just have it in the picture. And again, this is from the old school files. So I'm always for, let's go a little bit slower where we can, and on decontraction we always can be careful and go first a little slower and then speed it up as the horse gains more ground health-wise. So I think that is really important. When we are trimming a hoof for white line separation, the first thing is that you look for the correct angles again, that you really are looking where to put the break over. And there is so much talk on the internet between the different schools of thought going on about not rasping through the white line. Well, that's all fine and good. I'm all for not rasping through the white line, in general. But if you have a situation like this here, where you have such a long toe, and in order to respect your 105 angle here, this one, when you pull this down here, you come to well inside the white line. Then you have actually no choice. You can't leave this foot out here just so you don't get into the white line, or even here. You have to take it back, and it is not such a big deal. You will actually get a better horn growth from the top if you take that break over back to where I marked it here. So then the breakover is correct, and you can expect the horse to grow in a tight connection with this ground parallel coffin bone. When we have white line separation in the lateral walls, we trim it with a 45-degree bevel. I am today saying more use a 30-degree bevel, not a 45. Make this a little bit more shallow, and make sure that here where you where you started, that it is really flat and that you don't have an edge here. Let me go back. If you trim it like this, if you trim the 45, then you have here a marked edge. And while the ground is pushing it in like this, it's at the same time pushing this out. So you're not getting anywhere. So if you don't do the 45 but you do a 30 and do it a little bit more like this, just put a bevel on there like this, then you are in a little bit better space for the horse. And again, this is something you have to decide every time, what am I going to do here every time you trim. And also know not only what am I going to do this time, but what did I do last time. And by all means, if you don't write this down and you trim more than one horse, you don't remember it anymore. Write it down what you do. Write it down what your thought patterns were behind what you did. Did I put a better bevel, or a big bevel on this? Did I really put a 45 on this? Did it serve me well when I look at it the next time? And the big caution mark is on here because you can only do this if putting a bevel on the wall does not contract an already contracted hoof more. Let me try to say this some other way. If you have already a contracted hoof, you may not be able to put a bevel on this wall because you may contract the hoof even more. You have to know exactly your priorities. What am I going to do first? What am I going to do next? You can't trim everything the same way. It can be that on one and the same horse, you have such different feet that on one hoof you put a 45-degree bevel on and it works, and on the other hoof you can't put a bevel on at all. You have to do the opposite because it is so very contracted that the wall looks like this. And you have to actually trim it like this so that the ground pushes that in the other direction. That could be all in one horse. And this is why our trims do not take 15 minutes. And this is also why we charge a little bit more, because all this knowledge has to come from somewhere. And it's not even enough to just study this and learn this. You also have to get the experience for this. When we trim like this will keep the lever forces off the hoof wall and actually push the hoof more together when making ground contact. But remember, you can only influence new growth with your trim. While this beveling will help the hoof come together, you have to be patient and allow the hoof to grow. This beveling will inevitably lead to a thinner hoof wall, and you have to carefully judge how much bevel you can put on a hoof wall. All of this depends upon all-over hoof balance, terrain, and existing pathologies. This is why we cannot just blatantly give you a blanket statement like all flares have to be rasped off or all hoofs have to have always a Mustang roll. No. Mustang roll is a nice thing to have. And if you have enough hoof wall and you have a healthy hoof, by all means, put a Mustang roll on. But if you have already a contracted hoof, and you put a Mustang roll on, and this horse lives in soft ground, or in very forgiving ground, you may contract this hoof more than it is already contracted. and then you can't do these things. So you have to have a whole lot of background information before you can do anything to a hoof. This is why we have these long intake forms, fairly long intake forms, for every new horse that we trim. What's the background? What's the lifestyle? What's the nutrition? What is the movement situation, and so on. If the damage goes far past the level of the sole juncture, it may be necessary to cut the wall away to expose the hollow area so that nothing can get packed in this area and the lamina corium can regenerate. When it is, that was the case with the donkey. When it is this far, then we have to actually trim everything that's down below that red line away. And we have to put here our bevel on and not trim this straight out so that nothing ever can pull on this. And when you do this, this is how it looks if you have to resect something on the side. You have to have really good knife skills. You have to know exactly where your knife will cut the next time so you don't cut into the underlying lamina corium, and you can actually trim a bevel into this. It's not as easy as it looks, and certainly something for an experienced trimmer. We are talking about cause and effect in white line separation. When you look here at the picture on the right, this is how I got this horse into my care, with a very severely separated, resected wall to expose the diseased or infected white line and get oxygen there and get it to grow down. And that all, I have no problem with that. But when you look at the lateral picture, I have really a problem with that. The horse had such a high heel that and look where the hairline is going, that every step he took, he was overloading the toe. You see how the horn tubules run here, and then how they run here? And this is getting worse. So everything was concentrating on collapsing that toe all the time. And this was not the first resection this horse had. He had already a couple. And so finally he came to us, and the first thing I didn't do anything to the front. I took the heel down. And you have seen this horse's feet before. When we talked about abscessing, and I showed you how in one horse all three soles abscessed off at the same time. This is the same horse. He was really a sick puppy. And once I had the heel down and had him stepping into that heel again, the picture here on the left bottom, that was 3 months later. So it really grew out nicely. We have a little bit more to go. But you see that from the top it's getting in tight and nice, fairly nice. And by the time he left, this was all grown out. Which brings us to the next part, and that is flares. I wrote in my notes, to avoid any confusion, let's talk about flares. Thinking about it now, I think it's going to be more confusion. This is, where do you make the separation between flares and white line? Again, we have to look at the cause. What causes a flare? In most cases, when we talk about lateral flares, flares in the quarters, flares in the lateral walls, the reason for the flare usually lies in a wall that is too high on the opposite side. So you have a high wall here, and the body, the hoof, tries to stabilize the situation because the horse is not stepping on this as eagerly as you think it would. Either the hoof stabilizes it or it breaks down. I don't know which one is which. But the flare is going to be here. And that certainly goes along with white line separation, because it cannot flare if you don't have white line separation. This doesn't work that way. If I don't see the front picture of a hoof like this, but I see the bottom picture, and I only see the sole from here, then my immediate hunch is that the horse is high on this wall. Always. If it looks like this here, it is always high on this wall, on the opposite wall. That's how that happens in the first place. And then, as I said, I don't know if the hoof flares out because it can't withstand the pressure, or it flares out because it tries to stabilize the situation. While there are many trimmers out there that say, I let the hoof talk to me, my hoofs don't talk. I just have to figure this all out myself. Yeah, there was a little sarcasm intended in there, in case you're wondering. So, there is another school of thought out there that says they trim from the top, which means they rasp all the flares off. That's the first thing they do. And in a way, you have to be a little bit careful with that again. Just rasping of flares can potentially be, I don't want to say dangerous, but detrimental to the balance in the hoof. Because where you rasp a flare off, you may very well thin the wall, and then it depends what else is going on in this hoof, if that doesn't exacerbate the problem. Because if I take this entire flare off here and trim it really thin, then yes, at the moment that looks a little bit better. But as this wall is very thin, if this horse lives on very abrasive ground, if he lives on rubber, that's fine. But if he lives on very abrasive ground, he may abrade that thin wall way faster than I like it. And then we have even more of an imbalance. So it's not as easy as it looks. You have to make this decision every time, again and again. There is such a thing like a flaring toe, and that's what we're talking about here. And it's a toe that is too long, a toe that flares out there because it had previously a rotated situation. Again, you have to take this off in order to get the right angulation here. You have to get it to where the coffin bone would be and just trim it off. But only if you can. And you have to realize that if you do this and then the owner goes and rides a lot on this horse on hard ground, he will obliterate the toe because there is no hoof horn that can really withstand that abrasion, and the sole horn that's soft and the white line through which you just rasped are soft and there is nothing to hold your toe height up. So again, you can only do this to a certain amount, and you have to be aware that horses like this need to rehabilitate before you can heavily use them again. And this is the biggest part of all, is to get the horse owner to really work with you on this, and to say, okay, I'm gonna not go on this next long ride. This horse needs to stay home. He needs to be booted if he's on hard ground, and he needs to be exercised but not over-exercised. Always lots of things to consider. My flip remark on this is, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. Here are a couple of scenarios coming up of flared hoofs. What are the options? If you leave the wall as it is in order to keep the horse from walking on the sole, you will not get a decent connection between the wall and sole ever. I mean, granted, we have here the situation again of a very neglected trim. But when you come in and you have to kind of sort of remedy that situation, what are your choices? Well, my first choice would be, and I only have the pictures, I didn't do the trim, would be to lower this here a little bit more. That heel still looks pretty high to me. And I would try to get this horse more onto this portion of the hoof altogether. But that's beside the point. You have to bring all that wall into the sole junction. And when you do this, what happens is you will not have any wall left that the horse can walk on. This horse will walk on the sole. On the other hand, if you could see this hoof from the side, he's already walking on the sole. It's already all flared off and pushed apart. So I really would suggest on a hoof like that, as I said, I would take the heels a little bit more down, so he stands more on that actually pretty nice white frog. Take the bars down with it, and then you boot a horse like this. A horse like this should be booted. Now, if you just take, like I have just seen it again in a DVD where it was recommended on a horse that had not enough toe height, to take the nippers and just put a nice bevel with the nippers on the hoof wall. Well, if you do that, you also lose toe height. So, but if you take this wall to where it belongs, and the horse is still standing on the sole, which it will be, put some boots on. Not because you mutilate it, but because the horse needs some help here for a little bit. That is one reason why you should use a boot in a rehab situation. The other one is always unsuitable terrain. So here we have a hoof like that, or I don't think it's the same hoof, but a hoof like that from the bottom, or from the heel view, and you see you have to bevel this pretty far up in order to really have it not flaring out anymore. Here we have another hoof with the same problem that has a lot of flaring going on. We looked at this hoof already when we looked at bulb contraction. Unfortunately, all these problems usually come together. It's not just one problem in a hoof. That would be easy to fix. But it's so many different problems, and therefore we need to know what to do first. and what we can do and what we cannot do. Again, taking this hoof into the sole level and then putting him in some boots or putting him on very forgiving terrain. If I have a horse like that here, he can stay on the rubber or he can choose to go out in the pasture, which is almost, my pasture is almost as good as rubber. For some horses better than the rubber because it gives a little bit more. It is very forgiving. It is coastal Bermuda, which is a creeper grass, and it builds a nice interwoven carpet. And again, on the heel view of this, I just painted in for you how much you have to take off of this, and then you see how close this is to walking on the sole. But this is only for a short time till the wall has grown down correctly, and then everything is well. I made this slide because I would like for you to think in all, when you look at a hoof, where is the coffin bone? And what is the situation on hand? If I have the black part is, the black drawing is where the coffin bone sits in a healthy hoof. It sits this high up, the bottom is not connected. So you have actually here straight walls. The wall here goes parallel to the coffin bone, and only where, sorry, this mouse drawing doesn't get easier just because I do it more often. This is how much connection you have, so this looks actually pretty good. And then when you project where this would go out, then you take the wall into here. Just have to scroll your eye a little bit for that. You just have to scroll your eye a lot for that. And think before you trim. And before you take just that wall off. Do I have enough overall toe height to do this? Lots of questions to ask. And this is just, again, from this viewpoint, this is where you would put it right now to keep this all together. Looks a little bit different when you have the hoof really in front of you. And I hope that if you get a hoof like this, and one of you, like Pamela or Mark who is trimming, who else is on here who is trimming? Denise, any one of you, if I think Jonathan is trimming too. Any one of you, if you get a horse like this, please make pictures before and after. We could use some better illustration of this. This is a very difficult chapter. This is also difficult because there are so many different opinions about this out there. And this brings us to the end of this session. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and so that I can call on you. Yes, Christina.
Yeah, hello everybody, or good evening, or whatever. I just realized during this session that I think my horse has quite severe white line separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been wondering why the construction of the hoof is like that, and I haven't got any answers from, for example, from the trimmers who has been trimming him, and they have just talked about the bacteria, that I should try to get rid of the bacteria growth,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would be okay. But they haven't said anything about this, that actually this situation is this white line separation situation, and they haven't said nothing about the trimming, that what can be done or should be done with this throughout this trimming thing. I don't know if it's possible to look at pictures in my computer now while we are online. I don't know if that is possible, but
Yeah.
I've got these pictures from last summer, and if you can show this my computer to everybody, I don't know.
I think
just
I can,
remember. Yeah, I remember just one time we did that, and
Yeah,
it worked
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But if everybody wants to see and tell them their opinion and or your opinion, I think the situation right now is not so bad as it was in I think these pictures are in the very end of July.
Uh-huh.
But still, if you want to have these pictures, you I mean, you, Claudia, you can have them, because I think they show quite well what is going on.
Okay. If you can also send them to me, there is one thing, even if I give you the screen, then I cannot draw any longer on it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I would like to give everybody a chance before we do this, number one, so everybody who is not interested can leave, and everybody who is interested can stay. But if anybody else has questions before we switch screens to Christina, and you can see how a computer screen looks in Finland. Is there anybody else who would like to say something? No? Okay, let me see if we can do this in this setting.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hold on one second.
And I just put this email, this hhdressage at scrr.com. I just put them right away to your computer. I think those pictures will follow, and they are quite soon, maybe, hopefully, in your computer.
Actually, you are the presenter and you have the screen.
Okay. Thank you. So.
But what you have to do now is in your control panel, Christina, you have to push the play button.
Yeah. Where is the play button?
It's that blue one with the white triangle in.
Yeah. Okay, now.
Now
show
we have it.
Yeah.
Now we see
show
it.
my screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll see if the mouse will work also.
Yeah.
So
it
then
does.
we can begin.
Okay.
Yeah. There were lots of pictures here. One of my friend took these last summer, and these starts. This is the left front hoof, and the same one here.
That's the right
and
front.
Then right front, yeah. And
Okay.
I think I'm not quite sure if they all are one after another, but if this is right front hoof, I think and then here is the sole. Is this thing the white line separation, what we see here?
This goes all the way from this is the right. Now this is the left front. This is not the right front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
because then I think these pictures are not like three pictures from the same hoof.
Okay.
They are kind of mixed there. Yeah, I'm sorry
If
about
this
that.
is the
Anyway.
left front, and because of the way you have your hand in the picture, and we see the right front in on the bottom right, the lateral wall is quite flared. Needs definitely to be beveled in. The medial wall is not quite as much flared, but they are both almost flared into the heel area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a little bit connection on the medial toe, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And I would like to, I also think that the heels are a hair high, just a hair, and the bars are hair high, and you don't have quite enough toe height. I saw this so kind of flying by while you were showing the other pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the situation we have on hand. If you have another one to show us.
Yeah. And then
See, we don't
I
have
think-
enough toe height.
yeah,
Yeah,
these
so,
are front feet. Yeah.
yeah. And I can just from this picture I can see that this hoof has white line separation.
Okay. Yeah.
That's if you see enough pictures, then on
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
on
Then
this
sure you
one
can
is-
see.
On this one, it's not quite as easy to see.
Yeah. This is a back
Yeah.
hoof. Yeah.
What kind of horse
This
is
is-
this?
This is a kind of normal warm blood, kind of mixed.
Normal warm
Mixed
blood.
warm blood. Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know what it is. No special race or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of a thoroughbred half. I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
If that's the term in the
Yeah.
English, thoroughbred
Yeah,
half,
thoroughbred.
and the other one is from kind of, he's from Estonia,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I don't know about his mother and whole mother line. They are these English thoroughbreds, but this father line I don't know at all.
Okay. In this foot that we see here, he should have more white line separation on. This is a left hind.
Yeah.
On the lateral side, and
Okay, then we'll
because
see.
because he's high on the medial side.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there you have it.
yeah, there we have it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
your thing.
It always pans out like this, and I can just from this picture also see that if I hadn't seen the frontal picture, I can see that the medial side is high in the heel region at least.
Okay.
Yeah, and the bars are high, and
Yeah.
and therefore, because the heels are a little bit high and the bars are high, he's overloading the toe, and you have no chance to grow a toe on this horse.
Yes.
Yeah, so
And here is these are front hooves, but yeah, here is the other one. I think this is the left front feet of hoof.
no, this is either right hind or right front.
Right front then?
Okay.
Yeah, because this is yeah, this is the other, his hind hooves are
Yeah.
these more white, and both
Yeah, yeah.
both front feet are.
And there in the sole picture, that's the front.
Yeah.
Again, you have
Yeah.
more flaring to the white side, to the outside, and therefore more white line separation.
Yeah.
You can have white line separation without flaring. You cannot have flaring without white line separation.
Okay.
And it's because the inside is a little bit high,
Yeah.
you
Here is
know.
the-
And
Yeah.
then again, when you have high bars like that, the horse will always try to avoid that, to step on that, and then you don't get toe height.
Yeah.
It's once you have understood this whole cycle, this is actually rather simple.
Yeah. And here is the last hoof. There he has kind of this old
Scar,
Old
that's
scarf,
no more.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nothing to worry about. But
Yeah.
there the balance is better on this hoof.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite as imbalanced, and therefore the separation is not as imbalanced. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I mean this is something that's on this hoof. To me, that is simple to fix. To me,
Yeah.
that is simple to fix.
Yeah.
I would take the medial bar down a little bit more. I would leave it just sitting there for a moment. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
I would take the medial bar down a little bit more and take it shorter. And I would bevel the walls in and take the heels down.
Okay.
But you need to find somebody who's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Or you need to
Yeah.
wait till April and then we do it together.
Yeah, that was like my other option.
That's the other option.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here is the whole horse. You can see him there. Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like a warm blood. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you do with
he's
him?
standing these front feet. Nothing much.
Okay.
He's turning 17 and he's just my companion and friend. We are not kind of doing so much. Little bit riding, little bit something,
Yeah.
but not so much anything.
But you can
And
tell
he's living,
from
he's
the
living
way.
outside.
Good. But you can tell from the way he stands that
Yeah.
he's not standing in his heels. He's not comfortable in his heels.
Yeah.
Yeah?
This is what has been worrying. This kind of posture was the first thing which during this course, what made me worried about that he's standing always like this, like his front feet under his body. But he's 16 and he has been without shoes only for a year and 3 months. Before that he has always had shoes.
Yeah. 16, 17 is no
and he has
age
been
for
living
a
in a
horse.
stable. Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, you're gonna, with a little bit luck, you're gonna have another 20 years with him.
Yeah, I hope so.
Just keep him well.
But thank you. Yeah, but thank you for now this this thing that everybody else also were willing to look at these pictures and gave me the opportunity to show you these pictures and get kind of confirmation to my thoughts that now I know what is wrong with him.
Right.
It's not a kind of bacteria, only a bacteria which should be kind of
No.
taken care of. That it's more severe problems what he has.
No, you certainly can do something for the bacteria, but this is like taking an aspirin for a headache after you drank too much the night before.
Yeah.
If you drink because you're feeling better, if you drink again the next night, the aspirin didn't do any good because you didn't remove the cause of the headache. You have to remove the cause of the white line separation and not just get rid of the bacteria, because that doesn't help the imbalance in the hoof.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah, but thank you. But now I think I am now in a process to change the trimmer, and actually this girl, this Sarah, who has now trimmed Weller, this horse is called Weller, once, and she said that it's about this white line separation, this whole thing.
Okay.
And of course she said that there is bacteria, but she also said what she thought was the cause of this whole thing.
And how often does this horse get trimmed?
Yeah, he has been trimmed like every 6 weeks.
That's too long.
But now, that's too long, and that is also one reason why I now try to ask if this Sarah could start trimming Weller, because her horse is on the same stable, so it could be more often, like for every week or every other week or so. Because
till that problem is solved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can. If I did not have to go out of my way to trim a horse, it is for me more comfortable to trim the horse every 2 weeks, and I wouldn't charge you quite as much than if I would only trim him every 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Number one, we're getting somewhere. Number two, I really don't have to do a lot, if I trim every 2 weeks. So very good. I think this was not only a good exercise in looking at another horse, but it also shows to everybody how truly versatile this service is, that we can, if anybody has something to show, please be prepared and show it. We can do this, and we can do way more. Very
and
good.
I now send these pictures to you through this email, and if you want to use them as an example, you can
Thank you.
use.
I appreciate this.
Yeah, and thank you everybody. This was really useful for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Now we're gonna go back and I'm gonna say thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you next week again. We have still 2 more sessions to go, and have a good day, have a good evening, have a good night, and goodbye for now.